Welcome to episode 56 of the Playground Project with me, your host, Tanya Pomerantz. I am here in Ottawa, the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I appreciate the opportunity to live in this beautiful area, and I am so happy to welcome you to this week's episode. Let me tell you, it's a big one. Get ready for a rich, authentic, and insightful conversation between two career coaches. Before we start our chat, I invite you to follow me on Instagram at puddlejumpcoaching001. And if you're more of a LinkedIn kind of person, please send me an email to say hi. And in the doghouse today, we are showcasing the Ontario SPCA. The link will be in the show notes. The Ontario SPCA and Humane Society is a registered charity that has been operating for over 150 years. The society provides care, comfort, and compassion to animals in need in communities across Ontario. It values all animals and advocates to treat them with respect and kindness. The society strives to keep pets and families together and do so through a variety of community support services, such as sheltering and adoptions, including emergency sheltering, feral cat management programs, animal transfers, food distributions, humane education, animal advocacy, and spay and neuter services. The Ontario SPCA does not receive annual government funding and relies on donations to provide programs and services to help animals in need. And my fabulous mystery guest today is the awesome career coach, Michelle Schafer. Welcome, Michelle. I am beyond excited to have this conversation today. And as everyone knows, I always give context to how I know someone. And here, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to just read your little thing on, I don't know, I guess it's your about thingy on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So, Michelle Schafer, 2024 top 15 Ottawa coach, ICF certified, PCC, career coach specializing in career transition and leadership, career storyteller, LinkedIn community top voice, speaker and podcast guest, book author, wonderful person, rock star of a career coach, just fabulous. And I met Michelle. Well, no, it's true. I met Michelle because when I was leaving OCISO and I was kind of in this, well, the best way to say it, and people who know me know that I say I was in this book shuckaluk stage of my life. I just didn't know what was coming next. And I don't know how many people in my life said, "Oh, you've got to connect with Michelle." And so I did. Well, when all of these signs are coming at you, you have to pay attention. And I did. And I'm so grateful. Michelle, I'm delighted that you're here with us.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya. I mean, I'm very excited to be here too, because I've been, a follower of your project. I've been a follower, certainly of your career path since we met. And it's really exciting that both of us have been recognized as top career coaches, certainly in the city of Ottawa, which is really exciting. And, it's interesting when you remind me of how we met and those signs, it's such a great reminder that, the stars can be aligned. And when the signs are around you, when we ignore those signs, then, we're not actually following our path. And so I'm so grateful that you did reach out and that we were able to form a relationship from there.
Yay. Now, did you go see Oprah when she was here in 2012?
No, I did not.
Because she said that same thing. That we're very good at ignoring the whisper, and the whisper becomes you kind of like a shout. And then I added the thing. It's kind of like when somebody's throwing pebbles at your window, trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
And then we just keep ignoring because that's what we do. We're good at it. And then all of a sudden it's like an entire wall comes crashing down. And that is a crisis. And crisis, as they say, I don't know if this is true, is for the Chinese character for opportunity meets danger, I think.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so you're right. We have to pay attention.
Fascinating. Well, and I mean, it's interesting because there's signs all around us. Like there are things that might be visual. There might be things that we hear from other people, like kind of like, how we got connected. You were hearing from other people that, oh, connect with Michelle. But there's also the signs in our body. Like
Wow.
our body sends us information every single day, multiple times a day. And oftentimes we choose to ignore those signs. Like, what is the tightness that we're feeling in our belly? Or, oh, I'm experiencing some headaches. What is that really meaning? Or, just feeling apprehensive in a certain situation and the somatic response that we'll have. And oftentimes those signs in our body are telling us something. We might not know why those signs are happening or really what those signs are meant to bring us to. But when we pay attention to them and we just sit with them and we kind of follow them, then we see what happens from there. And it can be really interesting. Oftentimes, like even in the work that I do with clients and, people who are exploring different careers, there's a lot of instances where they can come back to those somatic signs, those feelings in their body that were telling them that something was right or something was off. And they choose, like at that time, not to pay attention to it. And then they realize that it led to, like you said, a crisis and something that was, a situation that really commanded their attention. So fascinating to even just consider signs and the power that they have in our lives.
Absolutely, for sure. And so, as the listener knows, we always kind of start with talking about where a fabulous mystery guest grew up and went to school. So, Michelle, where did you grow up and go to school?
Yes. So I grew up in Markham, Ontario. So Markham is about, I guess, 45 minutes north and east of Toronto. And I went to high school there as well. In fact, my high school was a huge high school. It was 2,500 students, which is massive for a high school. And, my parents are still in Markham. So I still do visit, obviously, quite regularly, make that trip across the 401 from Ottawa to Markham, like, multiple times in the year. And, one of the things that I realized, like when I was in high school was, and this, Tanya, this is probably going to make you laugh. I wanted to be an accountant, which is probably the farthest thing from what I'm doing right now. But I loved accounting in high school. And I thought, oh, yes, I want to be an accountant because my dad was also an accountant.
Hmm.
And so, obviously was focused on, applying to business programs, post-secondary. And here's the thing, what your own life plan is may not necessarily work out in the way that you planned it, because in order to get into business schools and university, I needed to have strong math marks. And, back then for me, it was grade 13. Of course, right now we only go to grade 12. Maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but, I had the triple threat of maths. I had 3 maths in grade 13, and math was not my strong suit. So my math marks brought down my average. Guess what? I didn't get into business school. I couldn't be that accountant that I wanted to be. So I had to pivot, and I was offered to get into an arts program. In fact, where I decided to go to university, Wilfrid Laurier offered a combo arts and business degree. So I was able to get an honors BA majoring in English and with a minor in business. And so I was able to satisfy that business need, but I spent most of my studies, obviously, in the English realm. And that moment was probably like one of the first turning points in my life, because I thought I was going to, gain access to a certain profession. And that was not really going to be in the cards anymore. I needed to think about something different. So really interesting to see that even just, entering university can change all that.
Yeah, apparently the pivoting in your life started at such an early age.
It did. It did. And like that need to be flexible and not get, too hung up about what it is that you want to do. I mean, of course I was disappointed that I wasn't able to get into business in these other schools, but then, it is a cliche, right? Like when one door closes, another one opens. And so even though the business door was closed, like unless I was going to take another year off and work on my math marks and re-enter university, I wasn't really wanting to do that. So the door that opened was that door to, gain an arts degree degree and minor in business. And, that turned out to be one of the best things because I don't think I was really ever cut out to be an accountant. Like I share this with friends now and I say, could you imagine me as an accountant? And they just said, that's just not where your strengths are. I said, I know, but back in high school, I really thought that they were. So that was certainly the first thing was, it really put me on a different path, but that was a good thing. I don't think I was really meant to, pursue accounting on the longer haul. But the second thing was by entering this English program, it was such a small program. Like some university programs are hundreds of students are part of that program. And so you kind of get lost in a large program like that. But my English program was super small. There were, not even 25 of us, and a number of us are still friends today. In fact, there's a group of us, we get together once a year and we go and we do something somewhere because we're all living in different parts of the province now. So, one door closed, but it opened up and brought me joy in different ways.
Well, I think, first of all, I love that intimacy. And I know exactly what you mean because I was at Carleton and I had like 300 people in my psych class. And you certainly did not feel seen, quite honestly. But I loved what you said. You said, I didn't see myself doing that. You didn't see yourself spending that extra time going back and, improving your math marks.
Yes.
That piece of self-awareness was crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's really interesting. I mean, and like, it's just funny because we're talking about this now. I don't think I appreciated back then that level of self-awareness that has really factored into the work that I do now, of course, and, helping clients develop their own self-awareness around like what's important to them in their life and, how they're going to go about doing that. That's a skill and it's, something that really develops over time. But, until we're talking about it now, I don't think I really appreciated that way back then. I mean, certainly in your 20s, there's so many things that we don't appreciate in life until, it could be years and years or decades later. And that's one of those things, like that, that awareness of what do you really want to do? What kind of work really gives you energy? And I mean, if I'm really honest with myself now, if I pursued a 4-year degree in business, with a specialization in accounting, I know over the time that those studies were not going to give me energy. And it's that awareness factors in so much into the work that we do. We want to align ourselves with career paths that allow us to do work that gives us energy for companies that believe the same things that we believe in. Like Simon Sinek, talked about, the why and what you do and how it's so important to recognize, why are you doing what you're doing? And that's my why. I mean, I call it my Simon Sinek why, I believe everybody is entitled to do work that gives them energy, but certainly for a company whose values are aligned with your own. And, in the pandemic, it was interesting because 4 years ago now, it's hard to believe it's been 4 years, but at that time, there was something called the Great Resignation. People were leaving their jobs en masse and going and pursuing other things. Well, one of the key reasons why that Great Resignation happened is because pandemic gave us lots of opportunity to reflect, think about what was important to us, and lots of people realized when they kind of sat and thought about it that, hey, like not only maybe am I not doing work that really feeds my soul anymore, but I'm also working for an organization that does not believe the same things that I believe in. And in the pandemic, companies were demonstrating their values all over the place. Like, forget about what you read on a website. It's how they were treating their employees. How were they responding to their clients and their customers? How are they interfacing with their community partners and their vendors? Those things were visible and they were in their news. And all you had to do was like raise your head up and see that companies were demonstrating their values. I encourage clients to pay attention to those values when they're looking to do something new. You want to move to an organization that is a really good fit for you.
Absolutely. And which makes me also think about the Holland Code, which is that idea of, your personality and what you do within the organization that feels the same way, that has that same why. This is why I absolutely love career coach talking, because when you're talking with somebody who knows and feels and has that same level of excitement and energy that you do about this kind of stuff, this just brings me complete joy.
Oh, well, and I mean, it's exciting for me too, because, because we, both of us have had experiences, both of us have worked with individuals too, and really helped them to find new paths and helping them with big transitions. And, the reality is like, even to do this work, it's important to even have your own experiences and reflect on those experiences. Like, I've been restructured 2 times in my career. So, I used to work in financial services, right out of high school, I was working for TD Bank Financial Group. After 18 years, I lost my job when TD Bank merged with Canada Trust. And so, that was career transition number one, moved into not for profit, worked for the Canadian Cancer Society for 7 years. That was, restructure number two, because in not for profit, money drives everything. It drives programs and it drives the funding for salaries. And when the funding isn't there, then programs and oftentimes people, need to go. And so my job was eliminated. So I bring that to my conversations with my clients. I help them understand that, I've been in this position too. Like, maybe my situation is different than a lot of the clients that I work with, just in terms of how they were restructured, or in some cases, it's not a restructuring. It's, it might be, being let go for other reasons. But, I understand what the impact of that transition is, like physically, emotionally, mentally. And so, clients know that when I'm working with them, that I'm not kind of standing on the outside looking in. Although, of course, as a coach, yes, there's a big objective component, but I can empathize with them, because I've had to apply for a lot of jobs. I've had to figure out my path when I found out that I didn't have a job anymore. I had to interview for jobs and I didn't get the job in a lot of cases. Like, I've experienced the letdown and the discouragement and the frustration and the overwhelm that comes from a job search. But simultaneously, I've also experienced the joy and the new possibilities and the energy that can come from exploring new possibilities. And so I bring like all of that to my work, and clients, have told me they respect the fact that I've gone through this kind of experience myself. It makes me credible, and it makes it easier for them to share, because they understand that they're talking to somebody who gets it.
Yeah, that lived experience is
Yeah.
incredibly important. But
Yeah.
you made a huge pivot. You started your own thing.
I know that, surprises, a lot of people, including myself. And I mean, it's interesting because, starting my own coaching practice, getting into coaching, I mean, was not something that was ever on my radar. And it's interesting, yesterday I had an opportunity to write about this on LinkedIn, and I had read an article by an author by the name of Gretchen Schmelzer. And I love Gretchen's work because it's so thoughtfully written, and a lot of what she writes about can apply to being in a career exploration and a job search. And she was talking about, sunflowers, how sunflowers don't bloom. It's like a process of unfolding, like petal by petal. And, she drew the connection to experiences in our lives where, we're developing, kind of like those petals, like slowly forming. There are times in our life where we're developing, and that we have people in our life who see us, they see the potential in us and encourage us to develop, so that we eventually do unfold into that beautiful sunflower, exploring new paths in life that maybe we hadn't thought of for ourselves. And that's exactly how I came to coaching. I mean, I had always in past jobs been coaching off the side of my desk. And I say that to mean that I was, developing like teams of volunteer trainers, or, other teams that, didn't report to me. They were more dotted line into me. So I was always in, like kind of a coaching kind of mindset and bringing that to my work. But I certainly never had a method or education around it. And about a year before before I lost my job with the Canadian Cancer Society, a very, very good friend of mine, Val Rosatani, who is a coach and was coaching at that time. Now she actually is a managing partner of Integral Coaching Canada. But at the time, Val was, she was coaching. And she said to me, a good year before I lost my job the second time, she said, I never understood why you didn't pursue coaching as a career. And at the time I said, well, I love my job. I mean, working for the society, I was working with teams of volunteer trainers. These individuals either were cancer survivors or they're caregivers of people living with cancer. They had a really deep connection to the cause. And I said, I love the people that I work with. I feel like there's lots of purpose. At that time, I'd even negotiated a full-time job into a 3-day-a-week job so I could be kids when they were young. And I said, well, the timing is not right for that. But, that it was just nice that she brought it up. But the thing is, like, life went on and, I wasn't actively thinking about it, but yet I never forgot about it. And so when the time came for me to find out that my job with the Canadian Cancer Society was going to be eliminated, along with a number of other people, unfortunately, at that time, I kind of pulled out that reflection and that thought, that comment that she made. And I thought, you know what, maybe me losing my job now is the universe saying, go and check coaching. And so then I started talking to coaches, exploring different schools, why people coach, the different specialties. And one of the last people I met with turned out to be my teacher for my first level of coaching with Integral Coaching Canada, although I didn't know it at the time because I hadn't made the decision on coaching. And, I was connected to her through a friend and we were chatting in her backyard. It was the summer. And I remember her saying very distinctively, you don't need me to tell you to do this. You already know the answer. And I thought, you're right. Like, I've been spending all of this time, like, trying to validate that this was going to be my path. But she totally called me out on it. I did know. I just needed to have the courage to admit it to myself and to do something about it. And so I, did find part-time work because obviously, mortgage needs to be paid and things like that. But on the side, I decided I would pursue my coaching certification. And so that led me to realize through the process of that education, hold on, this is something I don't want to do off the corner of my desk. This is something I want to do full time. And I opened up a practice, and that was almost 9 years ago. And the rest is history. Like, I literally joke to people that at age 46, I'm 54 now, going to be 55. Like, at age 46, I finally realized what I would do when I grew up.
Yep. I love that. I love that because that's something that I often talk about, not what you want to be, but who you want to be when you grow up. And what you are is such an integral part of who you are. And believe it or not, Michelle, I had that exact conversation with the coach who I was speaking to before I made the commitment to go to the coaching and get coaching. Same thing.
Gosh. Amazing.
She said, you know the answer. You have that answer already. That's a good coach, right? Who is able to show you that you've got that within yourself. That's what coaching is. We all have the answers, but the coaching is what brings those answers to the top. I'm thinking so you and I could talk for hours about all of this stuff.
Easily.
And we will in the future for sure. But I'm going to ask a couple more questions. And first of all, I'm going to give you a massive shout out because if you haven't on LinkedIn been following Michelle Schafer, you must. Her posts are insightful and inspiring. I mean, quite honestly, when I see the pictures that you post, they're so meaningful. And I love the way that you make these connections between something that you're doing or something you see. Because the way that my brain works, I like when you mentioned sunflower, where I went? I went to Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Because that's the state or the country flower. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean that too is a meaningful connection, right? So then it evokes all sorts of thoughts of individuals in Ukraine and what they're experiencing. And there's so many too that have come to Canada. And, I mean, you work with newcomers to Canada and just, navigating that journey of, establishing yourself, like escaping your home country, establishing yourself in a new country where English would not be your first language, and trying to find a job. Even just by you mentioning that, it just brings up for me just the incredible courage and risk taking that these individuals take on themselves, and all while supporting, trying to support families, trying to get kids established in schools. And it's really amazing. One of the things, of course, we have in common is our work with newcomers. And, I was constantly amazed, when I would work with, newcomers and talk to them about networking, which, a hard topic for, I'm going to say, the average adult to have, because a lot of people don't enjoy the activity of networking. And yet it's about not 80% of a job search. So it's a massive part of trying to find a job. But to work with newcomers who really don't have a network because they're new here, and to help them see, what, you're already forming your network and it's okay to reach out. And when you ask people for help and for time and to get information, people will respond and they will want to help you out, because the vast majority of people do want to help. So, interesting, the connection that you made. And then that just opens up so much more. Right. So,
Well, I just love the way his brain works, that you went from just those two words, like sunflower in Ukraine, to all, like, wow. So, but you know what I do when I'm talking to people about networking, because I can't stand the networking. I can't.
a lot of people do not like it.
No. And so I rephrase it and I reframe it and I say, you know what it is? It's connecting.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
that way, your guard is let down. And if I may, I need to tell you this story because I share it with my ladies in the program.
Yes.
I call it my scrambled eggs girl story. So a few years ago, I was at some type of conference. It was many years ago. And this young woman came up to me and I was eating my scrambled eggs. That's all, I had my eggs. And yes, I do put ketchup on my eggs and I was enjoying it. And she came up to me and she just started talking at me,
Oh
at me,
gosh.
Michelle. And I
Oh
was like,
no.
I remember this so many years later. And I tell people, don't be that scrambled eggs.
Yes. It's kind of like going to an event, and I don't know if you've had this happen to you, where you walk in the room and somebody approaches you, they thrust their business card in your hands and they start talking at you about what they can do, what they can sell you, and all of that. And you're right, like, that's great advice to say, don't be that person. Don't be the scrambled eggs girl. Don't be the person that throws the business card in somebody else's hands, because it is off-putting. It is not pleasant. And conversations are about building relationships. They're not meant to be one-sided. And so when you thrust the card in your hand or you start talking at somebody, there's no relationship building. It's just you sharing about you, which is very one-dimensional. I remember a friend of mine in a networking workshop, actually not a networking workshop, it was really like a business networking group. And he had a saying, which was, make networking all about the interaction, not the transaction. So it's not about the act of just talking to somebody. It's about building the relationship, which goes beyond the conversation. It's about stewarding that relationship. It's about checking in with people. It's about following up with them. It's about letting them know what it is in that conversation that was most valuable to you. People want to help and they like to help, but they want to know how they've helped. And by stewarding that relationship, that's a great way to not only help yourself, like in a job search or a career exploration, but just help you in life, right? We all need people. It takes a village to do just about everything these days. That's especially true in a job search, but we need people. We're not hardwired to do stuff on our own. And there's lots of people around to support. Kind of like, what you said about, you had somebody who you had a conversation with that reflected your potential back to you. And I had that same thing in my friend Val. We can be those
Mhm.
people too to others and, be those supporters because we all need supporters in our lives.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Michelle, I am just having like the best time. And I'm gonna wrap this up because I know you're a very busy woman. Do you have a favorite motivational quote or something, words that you like to follow?
It's interesting. Like every year, and this inspiration came from somebody I follow on LinkedIn. Her name is Lydia DiFrancesco. And I remember about 2 years ago, Lydia posted this challenge on January 1st of, I think it was like 2022. It was 2 years ago. And she said, like, what's your word of the year? Like, what is
Mm,
going to be the word that you're going to align all of your actions and behaviors to? And it was a really great question. So, a few years ago, I had three words really, really, which were simplicity, authenticity, and intent. I don't aim to make things complicated. I show up as my authentic self. And, the intent is so important. How do you intend to be in conversation? Setting that intent at the outset can be really helpful. So that was a few years ago. And then last year in 2023, my word was slow because I really wanted to honor like slowing things down more, not rushing as much. Now, what I didn't know was in February, I broke my femur. So that word
mhm,
slow really became like part of my everyday life because I couldn't do anything fast. So whoever knew that my word would, you know,
mm,
be forecasted what was going to happen. So for 2024, my word is health. And that's the word that I'm really, living by this year. And for four reasons, really. I mean, one is my physical health. I'm aiming for an injury free year. And in my family too, because I had a son who broke a toe, another son who broke his thumb. And so we don't want any fractures this year. So physical health,
mhm,
number one, mental health through
mhm,
regular meditations, even a few minutes a day can really, really help. Emotional health, like recognizing your wins on a daily basis. Sometimes we get too focused on the stuff that we're not doing, but celebrating what we are is really good. And business health, because obviously
mhm.
my business took a hit when I had my fracture. So I'm still in a process of rebuilding. And so that word health has got a lot of meaning for me. And that's certainly something that I'm putting out in the world and really, aligning all of my intents and my actions and behavior towards. So it's a great, great question.
Well, anything I can do to help you with that business health part, for sure. I love seeing you out there on TV, and I get excited. I'm like, oh, that's Michelle. She's so great. And so I'm going to stop fangirling here. I love this camaraderie between career coaches, and so many things that we talked about really resonated deep down in my soul today. And what a delicious hangout on the playground. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed this conversation. We went to many places. And, for everybody listening, hopefully there's some nuggets in there that really will also resonate deep in your soul as well and maybe spark some action and some motivation. So thank you, Tanya, for making this opportunity possible. Really, really enjoyed our conversation and chatting with you. Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Michelle. And oh my goodness, what a wonderful chat. I love the energy that I feel when I am talking about something I love with someone who really gets it. And here are some key nuggets I'm taking away from our chat. It takes a village. For real. You don't need to go through the whole job searching process on your own, or even life on your own. Self-awareness, even from a young age, is incredibly important, and we need to make our decisions based on our own values and our own reality. Self-awareness is a skill that we don't appreciate until much later, if at all, quite honestly. When one door closes, another opens up and brings you joy in completely different ways. the importance of aligning ourselves with work and companies that share our values. Being able to reflect on our own why is incredibly important and helpful throughout our careers. As career coaches, being able to reflect on our own experiences, career transitions, restructuring, job loss, and the way these things impact us physically, mentally, and emotionally. We have both experienced the letdown, discouragement, frustration that are all part of the job search, but we have also experienced the joy and positive energy that comes with starting something new that is a great fit for us. Michelle spoke about Gretchen Schmelzer, who writes about sunflowers that unfold petal by petal. And we are like that. And people in our lives see our potential. Listen to the clues the universe is sending you. You need to pay attention. You need the courage to admit this to yourself and to go for it. And what is your word of the year for 2024? Michelle's is health, physical, mental, emotional, and business, or we could possibly say career. Mine is inspiration. Michelle's book will be coming out soon, and I cannot wait to purchase a copy. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the playground today, Michelle. This was awesome. Remember to please follow me on Instagram at PuddleJumpCoaching001 or follow me on LinkedIn. Finally, remember to check out the Ontario SPCA to learn more about what they are doing to help animals. A big shout out to everyone who works and volunteers with them to make the world better for animals. Remember, you don't have to tackle everything on your own. It really does take a village. Please join me and my fabulous mystery guest on next week's episode. And until then, please be good to yourself, to others, to animals, and the environment. Looking forward to hanging out again next week when we will jump into the future together.